Thank you very much, Mr. Akib Said. My name is Zaki, so I am here to present. First of all, if I may, very quickly, I would like to thank the organizers for inviting me to come and present in this very prestigious conference. So let me go ahead and cover the points I would like to cover for today, and that is with regards to a program that I'm in charge of in the institution that I'm affiliated with, which is UOW Malaysia. UOW stands for University of Wollongong, Australia. So this is the campus that they have over here in Malaysia. So one of the programs that is under me is the General Studies program, which is basically not a program by itself, basically is a package of subjects, general studies and social studies subjects that everyone over here in Malaysia, students in tertiary level have to take. This is mandated by the Ministry of Higher Education over here in Malaysia. The courses that they have to take differs according to academic level, foundation, diploma, and bachelor's degree. And the content of the syllabus covers a combination of topics that covers history, political system, culture, and current issues over here in Malaysia. So as I stated just now, it's compulsory for all students, both local and international students over here in Malaysia. This is just to share with all of you for your information, the list of subjects that they have to take, not all of them, but it's a different combination for different levels of studies. And diploma, foundation, and bachelor's degree would be different combinations of subjects. Now, over here in Malaysia, when it comes to the curriculum development or program development, it is controlled or supervised by the Malaysian Qualification Agency, or MQA, as you can see the logo over there. And what MQA has come out over the years is a qualification framework, which outlines the general outcome and objectives for all programs over here in tertiary level in Malaysia that we have to abide to. So currently it is the MQF document now is at the second edition, and the domains that we have to cover in all the programs that we develop over here in Malaysia has to cover these domains. But the domains that you see on your left, that is the domains in the first edition of the qualification framework. But now the domains are slightly revised in the one that you see highlighted in yellow over there, the 5 clusters of learning outcome. So when it comes to development of any academic programs over here in Malaysia, the challenge would be to develop the program in which the whole program would cover all these learning outcomes. So this can be very challenging for courses that are more science-based, right? In which there is maybe not so much emphasis when it comes to issues such as, leadership, ethics and professionalism, interpersonal communication skills. So these are the areas of learning, or these are the domains of learning for which the general studies subjects are supposed to cover. Right, in order to ensure that students that graduate from universities over here in Malaysia, they are basically developed or trained holistically and not just simply to be experts in their respective areas of specialization. This is just a framework of the overall MQA program development framework in terms of the starting from the program objectives, and then the program learning outcome, and then the course learning outcomes for every single course that is part of the academic program. Now, what I would like to cover is to basically show just an example. I can't pretend, I won't pretend also to be an expert in this field, but the organizer, or at least one of the organizers over here, is someone that I know who I have shared some information previously about the challenge of developing learning outcomes, especially measurable learning outcomes for courses that are a bit more subjective in the field of humanities, social studies, and general studies that I cover. So this is an example of how it was done. This is again standard document that we have over here in Malaysia. When it comes to all colleges and universities, we have to plot for every program what are the program learning outcomes between 9 to 11 program learning outcomes, or PLOs, and they have to be mapped according to the clusters of learning domains that we saw just now. So this is one example of how the plotting was done. So I'm just showing over here the subjects that we have under general studies. So what they cover the PLOs that are naturally related to cognitive skills, leadership, autonomy and responsibility, personal skills, and also ethics and professionalism. Interpersonal skills, communication skills, yes, to a certain extent it's covered as well, but there will be more for courses that are related to public speaking and also oral communication. But these are the way that we plot when it comes to program development over here in Malaysia. So I just would like to share in this opportunity that I have a bit of an experience that we have in terms of how we design the assessment. And of course, the assessment would inevitably related to the cross-learning outcome for the social studies courses, how we, in a way, shifted from traditional forms of assessment, final exams, quizzes, class tests, and term papers. You can imagine, like for someone, for example, who is a student who is studying engineering or even like the natural sciences like chemistry and biology, and then suddenly they are asked to take a subject in Malaysian history or political system. So they find that to be very, very not their cup of tea, not something they like to study. So when we assess them, because it's a compulsory course, they have to take it, and then we assess them through final exams, class tests and quizzes and very traditional term papers. They really suffer a lot, right? Both in terms of the experience, they get very bored, they complain a lot, they grumble a lot, and also they don't have the motivation to really do well. Especially when it comes to some colleges where they, as a way to get around this, they make the courses, the general studies courses, to be just simply pass and fail instead of being graded and computed in the CGPA. So it becomes a problem for these students in terms of the motivation of taking it. They find it to be boring, and they find the assessment to be very, very demanding also, because you have to memorize this, you have to read so much books, you have to understand about points in history, on politics, and so on. So what we have done instead over the past few years is to try to shift towards to project-based assessment, experiential learning, where we ask students, instead of doing traditional kind of assessment, final exams and quizzes, we ask them to do something. We ask them to go to places, meet people, interview people, take part in projects, or organize even events on campus. Of course, we try to do this by still remaining on course with the content and the objectives of the respective courses in general studies, so that it becomes something which is meaningful, both in terms of covering the syllabus as well as in terms of the experience that they get from participating in these events and doing these projects. So in doing so, we actually saw an improvement in terms of the motivation of the students taking these courses, positive feedback as well, and also their grades actually also improve. But what becomes a bit of a problem always when it comes to shifting to something like this is how do you comply with the development structure, and how do you actually reflect these project-based assessment, experiential learning assessment in the form of within the framework of OBE, outcome-based education, in terms of linking the PLO, CLO, and so on. So it becomes an issue because people always, make this comment about, how when you have project-based assessment, the marks can be very subjective. There's no objectivity over that. And then the clarity of instruction expectations. So we have issues with that, because some lecturers probably may have different expectations or between lecturers, and amongst them they may have different expectations in terms of what should be done. And then you have also, when we have project-based assessment, inevitably students will be working in groups. So when they work in groups, you have free riders, people who do not really contribute well to the work of the group. So detecting that can be difficult, and they are not punished accordingly. And on the other extreme, we have students who may have contributed in a much more outstanding way in the group, but because the group overall may not perform very well at the end, so that outstanding individual's contribution is not fairly rewarded, or it's not really recognized. So these are some of the issues that we have in terms of how do we ensure in trying to do something new, but at the same time we also try to comply with the requirement that is given to us by the Ministry of Higher Education over here. So I'm just going to show you one example about how we try, right, to make it within the structure of the OBE framework over here in Malaysia. This is one class, or I'm sorry, this is one course that we have under the social studies or the general studies program, a course called Global Social Responsibility. So as you can see over here, the CLO is stated as identify, work together, and the other one, last one, is exhibit respect. Now, when it comes to the first two CLO, in a way, it's not that difficult for us to measure. We actually would ask students to do something and come up with a proposal of an event, and then we evaluate that. Working together, also, we would have evaluation, peer evaluation amongst them, and we can also have the evaluation conducted by the lecturers and also any of the partners that they have worked with in the course of organizing the events or the projects that they have identified. But the last part is probably the one that until today, I don't really have any clear answer about how do you actually measure that, but we have tried to introduce a way to do so. If anyone have any comments about this, I'm more than willing to hear your suggestions. Now, this is for the first CLO. How do we actually, in a way, constructed the marking rubric? So we now, as a way to ensure that there is recognition at the individual level, or evaluation at the individual level, we break the marks between group components and also individual components. So the lecturer would be marking according to this. And then this is for the second CLO, working together. So again, also over here, also we have the assessment or marks given at the group level and also finally at the individual level. Now, the last one, this is the part that is arguably, or clearly I would say, is a bit more problematic in terms of the objectivity of it. So this is about exhibiting respect for human dignity and worth in all situations. We've had countless debates with some colleagues over here also about how do you measure a verb like exhibit respect. But this is something that eventually, even though I personally also hold some reservations when it comes to the use of this particular verb, but eventually this was the consensus by the committee when it comes to the curriculum development. We wanted to have something which is sufficiently a bit more open for interpretation amongst the lecturers. I guess this is just my personal opinion over here. I always believe in OBE. My background is in psychology. I've studied educational psychology to a certain extent. I understand the background of the whole philosophy and the operations of OBE measurements and so on. But what I may not actually agree in terms of how we impose OBE upon the practice when it comes to curriculum development and assessment is when we come to the point of imposing it as some kind of prescription that lecturers have to do. If you don't do it, then your program is not complying to the intended outcome. So I think that is something that we ought to be a bit more careful. We want to provide some level of freedom, if I may say so, for lecturers to have their own interpretation about how they want to give the assessment, design the assessment, and also evaluate the students. But at the same time, of course, the beauty of the OBE framework is it provides structure so that if there is any issues when it comes to disputes, there is a way that we can pinpoint where the problem may be or the issue comes from. So I think that is where I feel, even though we want to be as exact as possible when it comes to measurement of students' assessment and progress, in terms of objectivity, in terms of operational definitions and so on. But some level of subjectivity inherently is something that cannot be avoided, especially when it comes to programs or subjects that are more subjective in nature, like social studies, general studies, social sciences in general, also humanities and so on. So I think some level of freedom ought to be given still to the lecturers when it comes to their interpretation of the issues and the topics. Now, this is just showing you some example of some of the other projects that we have asked students to do. This is for the course Ethnic Relations, hubungan ethnic in my national language. So we asked students to actually go and visit a friend from a different religion or different culture, just stay with them for a few hours, or you can stay overnight if you can, and then just report about the experience that they get. So previously, the way that this class is being taught, ethnic relations, in terms of the assessment, is final exam. So you read the book, read about the issue, understand about the conflicts that we had, and then it's an exam. So we feel that it's not really in the spirit of the learning outcome that we want, which is actually about building values. So that's why there was this whole program about, or effort about trying to make things a bit more project-based and experiential comes from. So this is visits to the Malaysian Parliament. We organize events on campus, traditional games, forums, and debates and cultural events. And even when it comes to any research project, instead of asking them to submit the conventional term papers, we ask them to do a research and then do the output in the form of a magazine like this. So this is about martial arts, about civilizational aspects or cultural aspects of different cultures over here in Malaysia. So instead of writing, term paper, we ask them to produce something, right, more creative like this. All right, so the whole idea is basically in accordance to the great John Dewey, when he said, give students something to do, not something to learn. And when the doing is of such a nature as to demand thinking, learning naturally results. So that is basically what we are trying to do. Whether we are really good at doing this, it remains debatable, but we feel that we have tried our best and we are trying to improve always. And I hope to also learn a lot from all of you from your presentations later on. Thank you very much. I think that'll be all for me. Bye-bye.
Hello everyone. My name is Mac. Is this my nickname? My first name is Pongsawe, and my surname is Anik Tamnongporn. I'm a faculty members of School of Humanities and Tourism Management, Bangkok University, Thailand. Today, I will present and sharing about the outcome-based education assessment for hybrid learning models. I choose for my subject that I teach. I taught last semester, like for research for tourism and hospitality in industry. Why I choose the hybrid learning model? Because of the COVID-19 pandemic. The learning model in Thailand, we need to change from in the classroom to hybrid models, or something for the model is suitable for each student. But from the last semester is the hybrid learning model is suitable for the situation in Thailand. So the first one, you need to know about the hybrid learning is the educational models where some student attend class in the person while others join in the class virtually from the home. The educator or the teacher teach remote and in-person student at the same time using tools like a video conferencing, hardware and software. But in Thailand, most of them choose the the learning platform through the Microsoft Teams. Okay, so how does it apply in the Thai context? For the my models, I plan to all students attend in the online classroom in the LMS or the Microsoft Teams at the first time when you opening the class. For describing the plan, the study plan or course syllabus, and tell the student sorry, which group of the student needs to attend on site or online classroom. But if some students have get the COVID, they can change from the on-site to be learning through the online platform. We separate students into groups. We have the plan A and plan B. This is a plan for show the student for the first time. I separate like a plan A and plan B. Sometimes I use for example, for the last semester that I did that for plan A and plan B, first time they need to attend online. For the second time, I tell them that if you number 1, 3, 5, 7, etc., you need to be the plan A. But if you 2, 4, 6, 8, etc., you need to be online for the second week. And for the third week, we change. Okay. For the assessment student learning, we have two perspective. Like for the teacher perspective, they showed for the object CLO, LLO, for and design for teaching activities and assessment. For the student perspective, they need to assessment and learning activity and which of the outcome they need to get. Okay, for Thailand now, we just change for the Thailand curriculum framework when I'm plan to do my slides, but for the next time I plan to develop more. Okay, I use for this before you decide the assessment to, or you need to concern about the constructive alignment, which has the learning outcome assessment and learning activities. Okay, for example, for my class, for my course for the from the research for tourism and hospitality industry. In this course, we the student need to study about the research methods and expected benefits of the research for the tourism and hospitality industry, the development of research questions, research design, sampling, development tools required for collecting and recording the data, statistic programming utilized in data analysis and the presentation of data useful for a wide range of business development. From the course description, we need to analyze which program learning outcome is aligned with the course. I try to write and develop. First one, design the tourism and hospitality services which are suitable for a variety customer with morality, ethics, service mind, and social responsibility according to professional ethics during work in the workplace or various situations. And the second PRO, apply knowledge, skill, and attitude which related to tourism and hospitality industry when facing various situations appropriately. From the program learning outcome, I design the CLO. We have 14 CLO for the course for the research for tourism and hospitality industry. In this section, I choose only one unit and which call CLO which align for designing the assessment tool for the hybrid learning models. I try to try to consist between PRO and CLO, which in my university design the template to do like this. Okay, I choose for the then you finish PLO, CLO, and then you need to design the LLO or lesson learning outcomes. I choose the unit number 2. I teach about the research problems which align with PRO number 1 and 2 and course learning outcome number 4. which is number 4 is select research problem for tourism and hospitality. And hospitality industry. Okay, select the research problems. So when I finish the course learning outcome, I plan to do the LLO for this unit. First one, you need to describe the definition of the research problems. What is the research problem? Number 2, you need to identify the source of research problem for the tourism and hospitality industry. Number 3, you need the student compare academic research problem and business research. How different? Select the research problem for the tourism and hospitality industry in accordance with the current situation. Number 5, compare the origin of the research problem for the tourism and hospitality industry. And then they need to display the origin of the research problem, research objective, scope of the research, definition of terms, and research benefits, which are consist with the main research problems. From the LLO, before you design, you need to analyze what is this unit competency, which has knowledge, attitude, and skill, or KAS. When I design, I analyze from the CRO to LLO, which the domain of the learning they need to have, and which testing and evaluation for each LLO. This is for example. Okay, for this one. For this section, I will show the LLO number 6, the display origin of the research problem, research objectives, scope of the research, definition of terms, and research benefit, which consists with the main research problem. I analyze that this LLO, the knowledge, the student should have the research problem about the knowledge, research process, definition of terms and benefits of the research. And for the A, like attitude, for the awareness of the research ethics. And for the skill, like academic writing. For the testing or evidence of learning, I plan to like observation and I design the research introduction form. Okay, sorry. When I finish the analyze the domain of learning in each LLO, which aligns CLO and PLO. I decide the assessment for this unit. For the your right hand side, I capture from my computer, which is in Thai, but on the left hand side, I translate into English. For this form, the students need to write or record about the research problem, rational, or research introduction, why they would like to study what is the research objects and benefits of the this research problem, and the definition of terms. For when I tell the student to record the form, and I tell about the research introduction score for overall. When I give them 2 points, and I separate in each topic like a research problem. Rational 1 point, research object, benefits and definition of terms. But I give the time for my student for 2 weeks to do the research introduction form for writing in this. Okay, so that's all my for sharing and presenting my research assessment tool for example for OBE form. The uh, subject is research for tourism and hospitality industry from a university from Thailand. Thank you for all of you.
This is with great pleasure that I am presenting my paper to you in this very prestigious conference, which is the IN for OBE. Earlier, I was impressed about the presentation that was given to us by the speakers. And today I'm going to present to you my sharing. I will call this as maybe a best practice when it comes to outcomes-based teaching, or you have to tell me later on what you think. I'm Cecil Aliman. I teach at the University of San Agustin in the Philippines. And it has been like if I'm right, I had been teaching art appreciation for 5 years. And it was really a challenge on my part when I taught art appreciation, especially during the time of the pandemic. So today I'm going to share with you what I'm doing and what are those things that make art appreciation exciting to teach. And the title of my paper is Creative Engagement in Art Appreciation, Measuring Outcomes in the Teaching of Humanities. So for a start, allow me to let you see this particular slide, and it says here, less us, more them. So we have to be aware that whenever we do and whenever we teach our students in the framework of the outcomes-based education, we are giving more focus on our students, especially on how they're going to learn and how they're going to be able to be independent at the end of the teaching and learning encounter. So we have to remember this, less us, more them. And in this particular cartoon, we are given this particular scenario that the teacher here is saying something like, for a fair selection, everybody has to take the same exam. Please climb that tree. So as you can see, in this particular framework, in our educational system, we have to treat students in a similar manner. We have to treat everybody as a genius. But in this particular cartoon, you have to take note that if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it will live its whole life believing that it is stupid. So this is a line that we have learned from Albert Einstein. So indeed, in an OBE framework, we really have to be very sensitive about how our students are going to learn. We cannot just give them one tailored assessment. So you guys, teachers, by the challenge of OBE is how we are going to tailor our assessment in the context of our individual students. So at this point, I'm going to share with you what are those things that I have to cover for today. I have to discuss OBE briefly as a concept and its nature in the context of teaching and learning. We also have to get the value, of creative engagements in the teaching of humanities. And finally, maybe later on, I'm going to share with you some of the things that I am doing in the classroom in order to let you see some evidences of some of my students' creative engagement. So as a brief backgrounder, when we talk about OBE, it's not actually a new concept. So as early as 1949, we have been or we were able to have Ralph Tyler's book on the basic principles of curriculum and instruction. And if we try to look at how Tyler presented the way learning is going to take place in our classroom, we have to address all these questions like what educational goals should the school seek to attain, what learning experiences should be selected to fulfill these goals, how can learning experiences be organized for effective instruction, and how can the effectiveness of learning experiences be evaluated. So if we are going to go back to what Tyler has done before, we were already undergoing what we call as outcomes-based education. So we have to make sure that everything is in alignment. That's the basic essence of outcomes-based. And now,
Hello,
in,
ma'am.
in
Can I say something? Your slides are not changing.
oh,
Please make sure it.
maybe the net is too slow.
I hope.
Okay, wait first.
We hope we sort out it.
I think I need to switch off my video meanwhile. Can you see my screen right now?
Ma'am, your screen is here, but not slides are changing.
Oh, so it has
Still,
something to
the main slide is here.
as of now, can you not still see my slide?
Yes, ma'am.
But in my end, I can already see my slide right now. Okay,
Ma'am, still you change any slide or not?
I'm changing.
But here is only one slide. Main slide is here.
Oh, so okay. What will I do with this? Okay, wait. Your screen is paused. Okay, I'll stop first and I'm going to repeat.
Please sort it out as soon as.
Okay. What about now?
No, ma'am, it's okay.
Okay.
Please carry on. Continue your presentation.
Okay. So
good.
I stopped at this slide, and now I'm going to present what is the context of creative engagement in this particular presentation. So when we talk about creative engagement, we mean, or I mean in this particular framework, how students are made to participate and collaborate with each other, and how they are supposed to be engaged in activities in their purposeful involvement, and they're coming up with their own artwork at the end of the session. Okay, I'm sorry. And how these students are given opportunities to view different artworks. They will be able to understand what these artworks are. They'll be able to enjoy, and in the end, they'll be given the time to also analyze the different types of artworks with the application of the different theories. And they're also given the chance to express themselves through their own interpretations, especially on how they perceive the works of art. Now, if we go back a bit and look at the OBE principles, as teachers, we have to take note of the following points. So we have to be clear about what focus we have. We have to need to allow students to have an expanded opportunity to succeed. They should have high expectations for quality performance, and we have to design down from where we want to end up. So this kind of framework is process driven. So in this particular subject, in art appreciation, in order for us to really check on whether our students are making good in the subject, one of the things that we did was to conduct research, and that research was on developing creativity through creative engagement and art appreciation, outcomes in the teaching of humanities. And this was published in an ISI publication that was only last year, just for us to really capture whether the strategy of engaging them in a creative manner works or not. So this is the publication. And on the right side of this presentation, you can see the abstract of the paper, but I'm not going to read this anymore for time constraints. So based on this particular output, we have included here some of the creative engagement practices that were highly valued by students. And when we try to make a little comparison in here with regard to those creative engagement practices, students rated, or they find the local arts to appreciated by them. They say that art activities in art appreciation class has demonstrated their understanding of the subject, and it has deepened their sensitivity for themselves, their community, and the society. And because this has to go to be with the course outcomes, check on those outcomes at the beginning of the term and try to check whether these course outcomes are actually accomplished. Some of the activities were included in here when it comes to the teaching of art appreciation. And in the course outcome, explained and evaluated different theories of art. One of the activities that the students were given in their creative engagement is to conduct an activity in art which has got to do with reading the image. So they were exposed to looking at a particular work of art, and then they will be asked to analyze it in the context of in this particular activity, Alice Guillermo's reading the image is used as the framework in which the students will be able to analyze a particular visual art. And in this particular activity, the students were able to see art as something based on the 4 planes of analysis. And on the right side, you can see here the actual output of the student based on this particular strategy. Okay. And so another one that I'm going to share with you is the creative application of an art concept. This is in line with course outcome, demonstrated an understanding and appreciation of arts in general, including their function, value, and historical experiences, and historical significance, I'm sorry. And so there are 3 works that I have shared with you, and you can see that the students were really exposed to this particular engagement, and this is actually their choice. So they have to come up with an art concept and apply this art concept, and they have to create their own. And as you can see, because now is the time of the pandemic, the teacher has really no way of finding out whether the students are doing this. So what I basically did was to put or let them put 3 pictures before the start of the composition, during, and after, just to make sure whether they really did their work. And so this is one of those creative engagements. And another one is they were also given the chance to do art criticism. And in art criticism, the course outcome that aligns here is demonstrated at the end of the session, or at the end of the course, I'm sorry. They'll be able to demonstrate an understanding and appreciation of arts in general, including their function, value, and historical significance still. And these are some of the student outputs that I can share with you, and how the students did it in order for them to analyze or criticize a particular work of art. Or sometimes, and most of the time, we have to choose artworks that are done by famous artists. And another creative engagement that I have exposed students in art appreciation is artivism. So this particular paper is supposed to be presented next month, and this has been accepted in this international conference. And what we did or in this particular engagement of students is artivism or art for social transformation. So this is actually a visual analysis of student curated artworks. And in this particular creative engagement, I was able to collect like more than 100 artivism outputs. So this one provided the students the opportunity to have their self-expression at the same time, also their way of promoting their advocacies. And another in this particular um, creative engagement, they were able also to enrich themselves. So these were some of the outputs that they had during this particular creative engagement. So this is still with regard to artivism. And they also came up with in this particular creative engagement, a particular output in artivism is also a call to action. So in this call to action, if, as you can see, there is an advocacy for climate change, there is an advocacy for mental health, and there is also an advocacy for energy conservation. But these are not the only call to action the students were able to come up with as part of this creative engagement. And another one is also part of this is they are able to develop social awareness. And the social awareness they were able to come up with was those that they expressed during the time of the pandemic. And so you're able to see how creative the students were able to translate their awareness of a particular social issue and how they're able to translate this based on their own creative ability in the context of the artivism creative output. And the final part of the teaching of art appreciation is actually for students to come up with their own art exhibit. Now, before the time of the pandemic, it was face to face, but now it's virtual because of the pandemic. And the course outcome here is mounted or students be able to mount an art exhibit, concept development, production and post-production, even marketing, documentation, and critiquing. In fact, in this particular art engagement, many of our students were able to sell their outputs and donate those outputs for the health workers that volunteered during the time of the pandemic and even up to now. And so this particular virtual art exhibit allow me to share some of this now. And this particular art exhibit focused on art appropriation, which is the practice of artists using pre-existing objects or images in their art with a little transformation of the original. So allow me to share this with you. This is just very quick. Okay. So, what you were able to witness a few minutes ago is actually one of those activities that were also given to the students as part of the final requirement in the course. So, I have to cut so I can also finish my presentation. And finally, important points that we have to remember that creative engagement and art appreciation classes influence student creativity and aligned with outcomes in the course curriculum. A more consistent application of creative engagement in other courses may enhance their creativity in a more intensive manner, and a consistent process may also be considered. Teachers that utilize the strategy could provide more support based on student feedback and support students with deeper thinking about what components could be implemented to increase their understanding while keeping them engaged. And students could also get more practice with creativity coupled with reflection in art appreciation classes. But before I end, let me share with you that this is only one aspect of the strategy that we have implemented during this term. There are other creative engagements that students were also able to accomplish, like in literature, in music, and in other art forms. So this one is basically their creative engagement only in art appreciation to help them express what they want to express. But there are many ways that they were also given other engagements in other art forms. And with that, I would like to say thank you. And if you have questions, you can find me at the email reflected on your screen. And for the references that I have used in this particular presentation, you can also run through the list of the books that I have used. And with that, I would like to say thank you to everyone and have a nice day.
Okay, let's take a break for some time until our next speaker will come. So, if anyone want to ask question, please place your question in the question tab.
Now, a question was given to me. Can I answer that?
Yeah, sir. Please ask the question.
All right, so someone asked me about how do we implement or how do we measure program outcome. But before I answer that, let me just ensure that everyone understands the structure of the program as far as at least the nomenclature that we use over here in Malaysia. Program refers to the academic program, like bachelor's degree of bachelor's in arts of English literature or bachelor's in communication, that is program. And then under a program, we have multiple courses or subjects. Maybe in some countries, they use the word subjects. So measuring the outcome for courses is fairly easy. We look into the assessment for the respective courses. But when it comes to the PLO for the program, that I have to say over here in Malaysia is not it's not well regulated. It depends on the institution. In my institution, we have actually done this in a rather superficial way. We ask students to evaluate themselves upon finishing the program. So I feel that is superficial. I'm being self-critical over here because students are evaluating themselves, and that's not something which is very objective. What we can do and what we have done for some kind of a test program on our part is that we try to look into the achievement of course learning outcome for individual programs, and then we combine them for the entire program for individual programs and then for the entire program as a package. But the problem about doing that is over here in Malaysia, as I'm sure in many other countries also, in one particular class you have students from different batch or different cohorts or different intakes. So for us to determine that the program learning outcome has been achieved from any particular cohort, when the class is mixed with students from different cohorts, right? So that is really difficult. But at least we can fairly say that it has been achieved, but it's just that when it comes to finding a really objective way of measuring that, I can't really answer that. Maybe if there are anyone who have a more precise way of doing this, I very much would like to learn from you. If I can ask the question to Professor Aliman, I was really impressed by your presentation just now about creative assessments, creative arts and so on, because creative arts is also one program that I have under me in my department. The issue that we always have when it comes to trying to introduce something like what you have done is that the regulators would ask us about the objectivity of doing this in terms of the marks given by the lecturers, about the student learning time. What is how do you measure or give an estimation of the number of hours the students need to spend in order to achieve these to complete these assessments? So these are the things that to me I find it's difficult to answer because it's very subjective. But if you can share maybe your experience about how you handle that, I very much would welcome and would like to hear your opinion.
Yeah. I have two ways of doing that because our classes are synchronous and asynchronous. So during synchronous classes, what we're doing is to give students lecture and we expose them to the concept, and then we give them some examples. And then during the asynchronous time period, they are doing the outputs, the creative engagement. And I have a rubric for the activity. Each of the concepts that they are going to translate into creative engagement outputs, we have to set different rubrics. So they are given like 3 hours we have 3 hours for our synchronous classes. We also have 3 hours for our asynchronous classes every week. That's how we do it here. So that means that we still have to follow the CHED mandate of 54 hours, but our scheduling is like 3 hours synchronous time and 3 hours asynchronous time. And we do all those outputs during the asynchronous time period. And we are also ready online if the students are going to ask questions. They can contact us at the same time, even if they are doing their asynchronous tasks. That's how we do it. Yeah. And sometimes we also have to tell them that they have to bring their materials, and they are doing their materials where we're doing asynchronous classes. So we have to check their materials like crayons or whatever material they're going to use. They have to show it for checkup during the synchronous classes. And we also give them activities like that are only consist, like for example, for 30 minutes or 1 hour. It depends. It's a flexible strategy that we can do. And we find it interesting, and students also do not find the class boring because we insert sometimes all for the activity, all for lecture, or integrate the activity within the lecture. So that's how we do it in this particular subject. Yes. But it's interesting, especially if we give them creative engagement in kinesthetic activities like dance, and they create a vlog. And then they submit the vlogs in our learning management system, and then we give them rubrics for all of these activities. We give rubrics prior to the students doing the activity. But we find the vlogs also very interesting. Like they go to a particular place, interview the people there regarding art, like people in the community doing pots. Here in the Philippines, we have a lot of artisans doing pots, and people in the community who are weaving, for instance, our fibers. They are weaving that, and students go to that particular place. They create vlogs, and they are going to put the vlogs in the learning management system for others also to get a look. And then we have a synchronous session to process all the presentations. We have a lot of interesting activities in the teaching of humanities, especially now that it's a pandemic.
Yeah. So this was all started even before the pandemic, I would assume, isn't it? It's not just because of the pandemic.
Before the pandemic, we already have a lot of activities like this. Our virtual exhibits are face-to-face, and it's very beautiful if it's face-to-face because people can see the exhibits and they can buy. The students are also selling some of the artworks. And it's also good during before the pandemic because we go as a group. We go to certain places as a group, but now because of the pandemic, students go to assigned, like they go to the community, they visit the community and try to check on the living art legacies that these people in the community have, but they do it individually, not anymore by group because of the pandemic. But the curriculum states that we need to have a variety of activities. So we explore, we give time to ourselves to explore in the activities because, students are really very hyperactive. They don't want to stay bored and do the same activities all over again. So many of our teachers, we have professional learning group, or we have a professional learning community, talk over these things while we're taking coffee, and then we share our best practices and also learn from experiences that are not really very good. So we are not going to repeat the same experience again. But we do have professional learning communities where we share our ideas, especially what we are doing inside the classroom and what works and what does not work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great to know.
Yes. But, it's really very difficult to deal with OBE, especially if For instance, you teach a skill and then cannot get it right away. And how many times are you going to repeat teaching and teaching so the students will be able to get what you are really trying to teach them? So this is really the challenge that we have to really be aware of, especially in the OBE framework, where the outcome is more important than the strategy maybe that we will be able to use for them, because we have to make sure that at the end there is something tangible that we can see among our students, especially in the subject that we are teaching. This will be very difficult in other subjects, but in art appreciation, I have observed, now before I taught other subjects, but when I started teaching art appreciation, I enjoyed, because I can explore more on other activities that will help them enjoy and learn at the same time.
Yeah, thank you, Prof. Very interesting. I very much would want to learn more from you later on, because we are trying to build our creative arts program. And I've been trying to really get our lecturers to be a bit more creative in terms of the assessment, because that's what creative-based programs supposed to be, isn't it? It cannot be something which is redundant, overly conventional. It has to be something which is different. All right.
Yeah, but we can also try. Yeah, sir. We can also try technological approaches, like we did actually some of the works of the students were digital art. They will ask me, ma'am, what about if I'm going to explore in digital art? And I said, yes, you can do it. You can you can do it manually, or you can have digital art, whichever you wish you can do, as long as you have the output at the end of the day. So they like it.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I kept this because there's no other presenter. So if you don't mind, I can ask more questions.
Yeah, yes. Do we have? Yeah, we have no more presenters here.
Now, if I may ask Prof again one more question, if you don't mind. Because we are in the field of creative arts, humanities, there is some element of subjectivity, especially when it comes to the marks given. So how do you handle that if there are any disputes?
Can I say something, ma'am?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I can say a lot of participants are here and listening you. So we are waiting for the speakers. So you can question answer to each other about the session. It's okay. Please carry on.
Okay.
So I'm going back to your question.
Yeah.
How are we going to more or less eliminate the subjectivity in the way we give grades? One of the strategies that I do is to create rubrics. So the rubrics will be graded, and we cannot do anything else without grading them or giving them scores, like, is the activity more or less following the concept that has been discussed? If, like, for example, that has something to do with creating a value in the work of art. So is the student able to follow the concept in the translation of the visual art created? And then there is this element, there is another component on the way the student, for example, translate, like, is the student able to make an output that is desirable or good to look at? Is it original? Sometimes it depends on the kind of artwork that the students are supposed to create. But it's really true that it's very difficult to come up with an assessment with regard to a particular output. But the creation of the rubrics really helped in the way the teacher is able to score. And there is also that part in our learning management system where we also give constructive comments, like these are non-graded comments that we can also give to students, aside from the rubrics, where these rubrics contain scores. So, but the problem here is how are we going to make sure that our students are the ones who are doing the work? So you have to be very smart at spotting. So I have to make sure that they have to get a picture of themselves while they are starting their work, in the middle of their work, and at the end of their work. Sometimes I have to let them do the work synchronously. So that means that I am on screen looking at everyone doing their work. So that way you will be able also to eliminate doubts that this particular student might not be able to accomplish this one. And another one is there is a pattern or consistency. Say this student A was able to accomplish this artwork. The next time you give the same plate, you try to check whether the work is consistent with the previous one, and the third and the last. So in one semester, we have actually like 12 plates, but during the pandemic, we reduced this to 6 because of time and difficulty on the part of the students. But it's really very difficult on my part to grade because, you know, subjectively, it's something that even art itself, the beauty, the eye of the beholder. So how congruent will be the judgment, my judgment with the translation of a particular student. So, but I haven't encountered a student complaining to me that, oh, mom, my work is good, but you're giving me a low score. So far, in my experience, I haven't encountered that one where a student will complain that I gave him a low score, even if his work is good. So it's very good because when we talk about lines, for instance, is the student able to translate a line, a horizontal line in a correct manner, a vertical line in a correct manner, and all the elements of art, they have to do it in one output, for instance, so they cannot complain because are you doing a straight line? Are you doing a broken line? Are you doing a parallelogram? Something like that. Well, we start from the most basic part of drawing up to the most complicated ones. So that's how we do it. Yeah.
Understood. Thank you, Prof.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you for your information from Malaysia and the Philippines.
Mac, you are teaching research methods. I teach that subject also, but
Yeah.
what I find, if we can maybe share some notes and trade secrets.
Trade
Do you
secrets.
still, do you still give final exam or exam-based assessment to test students' mastery of research methods, or do you now go straight away for skill-based assessment?
I have the final test also.
Okay.
And I separate into to choose like a final test and the research like a research reports.
Okay. So we still have tests now.
Yes.
Yeah, which I agree. I think when it comes to certain subjects, because it is concept-based, theoretical-based, students' mastery of the information, I think, needs to be tested. Probably it's just that we now know, I think all of us have come to learn about this because of the pandemic. There are different ways that we can give tests also. It doesn't have to be necessarily exactly time-based. It can be more like take home, or it can be something which is open book. And I think one of the blessing in disguise, so to speak, for the pandemic is that we have all tried all of that. And I think we found that certain things actually work better compared to just simply traditional exams that we used to do before.
Yeah, we cannot just say we do not thank the pandemic because the pandemic was able to give a lot of opportunities, especially for teachers. Imagine we can already teach, like we can teach abroad, we can teach anywhere we want during this particular time. And that's an opportunity. But yeah, I agree.
But it's interesting for me to see the way that, I think both of you shared the structure of your courses. There are some slight difference in terms of how we have it, the framework over here in Malaysia. For example, the regulators over here in Malaysia are very sensitive when it comes to any learning outcomes. There must be only one verb. It cannot be two verbs. But I see there are some of you just now, your CLOs have two verbs. So I guess that's okay on your side.
They call it double barrel.
Yeah, double barrel, yes.
Double barrel, yes. But yeah, it's true because during the training for OBE, we are discouraged really not to use two verbs in an outcome. So, but sometimes teachers still forget using the double barrel because they thought that it will make your teaching and learning more intensive if you can put input double verbs. But we are actually discouraged to use double verbs in our learning outcome or in our learning objective. Well, the supervisor has to be strict about it.
Yeah.
Can I ask all of you, which is the best for writing the learning outcome? Or only one verbs or two verbs is better, or more verbs?
So yeah, actually, as I was saying, when I had the OBE training years back, we were encouraged not to use two verbs because they call it as double barrel.
Yeah.
So it would be best, according to trainers, to use only one verb for the outcome. Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think it makes things a bit more clearer. It's just that sometimes we feel that we want to do more. Over here in Malaysia, for every course, the course learning outcomes should be only between 3 to 5. Normally, it's only 3. Depending on the credit hours or credit value. So it depends on that.
But it remains to be the discretion of the teacher. Sometimes some institutions would have like 4 outcomes or 5 because they still include institutional outcomes like values, values formation, and community service, and service learning, and a lot. But technically, ideally we have 3. 1 for cognitive, 1 for affective, and 1 for psychomotor, and then add the value focus. But
is it the case, Prof, sorry to interject, that for every course there must be one learning outcome for each one, cognitive, affective, and psychomotor? So is that the way it is? Okay.
Yeah, we really have to be faithful with Bloom. That still remains to be that's Bloom's taxonomy of learning.
Yeah.
We really have to be following the SMART also. SMART.
Yeah.
So
specific, measurable.
It has to be SMART, and it has to be cognitive, affective, and psychomotor. So that's always the mantra for learning instructional materials and so on.
Yeah. Okay.
So we had been talking a lot. There are 2 speakers, so we're not able to come in because we're supposed to be 5 of us.
Yeah.
Yes, we are waiting for the Professor Ilyas Sampa. He is coming as soon as.
Okay.
So we are waiting also for the question answer. If the participants
may I ask a question?
Yes, sir.
May I ask a question from the 2 of you? Like, for example, what are your struggles in your respective institutions with regard to the implementation of OBE? Like the challenges that you encounter in your institutions, like are the teachers able to accept right away when OBE started? Because there was on our part, some of the teachers were having a hard time when OBE was first introduced, And then we have to really conduct a lot of trainings for teachers to really understand what OBE is all about. And then comes Spady, and Spady translated everything, and all things come into proper perspectives when it comes to OBE. So may I know if you have some problems with regard to OBE in your respective institutions?
Mac, you can go first.
Okay. Good. I tell the truth. Last semester, I got the training from the instructor for the OBE, because in Thailand we plan to change to the OBE perspective. I think around September in Thailand we need to take action about OBE for the whole country according to the government announcement.
Mhm. So how do your
But it's
teachers
a challenge to explain the faculty, all faculty members in my university what is the OBE, how to organize. It's very hard, and I need to encourage them to do it.
Yeah.
And
On my
how
part,
about from the Malaysia?
yeah, on my part, when it comes to implementing OBE for programs that are new, or even like you are starting a new program, and that's easy because you start from the bottom, so you go step by step. What is a problem always is when you have an existing program that has that is long standing, that was developed years ago during the last century and so on, and you have to somehow fit that into the OBE framework now. That is a big challenge, especially when you have also sorry to mention this, maybe some of the more senior faculty members who are used to doing things their own way. And then you want them to try and think or develop things in a slightly different way. It takes some convincing and a lot of persuasive strategy and techniques.
Yeah, but the first thing that you need to work on will be how to convert your syllabi into the OBE format.
Yeah.
Which we did. Yeah. So I'm not sure, but in the Philippines, we started OBE many years ago. So all institutions under CHED supervision already have tailored their curriculum to follow the OBE mandate. But
Yeah.
of course,
Over here in Malaysia, actually, it did start quite early, like during the start of the 21st century, around 2005, 2004. But the enforcement wasn't very strict. That was the strict enforcement was only a couple of years ago. So during the first generation of programs that was supposedly developed under OBE, it was done in a very haphazard manner. So you would have programs being developed with one course having multiple course learning outcomes that are linked to multiple program learning outcomes. So it's just basically plotting for the sake of compliance, but there's no meaning to it. So when we try to now correct things back, so that becomes a bit of a challenge because you have to work backwards instead of forward building. We have to trace back where are the mistakes, and we have to somehow rectify that step by step. So that is the challenge for me now, especially as the head of department for the past 4 or 5 years, dealing with programs that are long-standing and converting it into OBE structure and framework.
the transition will be more difficult. Dealing with faculty members who are resistant to change is more difficult rather than doing all the paperworks and assigning teachers to do tailor their curriculum and their syllabi into the OBE format. But I think our problem is also a bit similar to yours at the onset of the OBE implementation.
How is the tourism industry in Thailand now? Has it rebounded?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
really now, but they try to change the sector from the we change to try to promote the culture and the mice industry to mice business.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Thailand
And
is
how
working very
and
well about the tourism, and he worked also for many years to promote tourism and hospitality in the Thailand, and it's very appreciable
Mhm.
for the government of the Thailand and also people of Thailand working.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask all of you from Seki, Professor Seki from the Malaysia and Professor Marcel
Yeah.
and how about the tourism in the Malaysia and the Philippines? But before the pandemic, I plan to like
Boracay.
loosen. So I try to plan to the loosen, but I cannot because the pandemic.
Well, tourism is bouncing back,
Mm.
now. I was in Boracay last month, and
Mhm.
Uh-huh.
I have noticed that it was really thickly populated by tourists, especially from Korea. Korea.
Mhm.
So Boracay has I don't know, but I think they had like 1 million tourists in a month.
Mhm.
Mhm.
So I guess we are getting back tourists, especially in Boracay. But I'm not actually particular about the city proper, but in Boracay, we do have a lot of tourists. Now, I think Thailand is also very good when it comes to tourism right now, and even Malaysia.